Also, mostly, we're talking about Charlie Kirk, the terrible, awful situation that happened yesterday. Last evening, he was assassinated as he spoke to a group of students in Utah. One single bullet from a high-velocity rifle fired at him from what looks like about 200 yards away from somebody on a roof. The assailant still has not been captured. The police are still looking for him. We don't know who it is that did it. We don't know why they did it. All we know is that we can assume that because Charlie Kirk was seen as a kind of a right-wing polemicist, other people have said, well, that's not really fair. He was a Christian nationalist. Whatever it is that he had a certain number of views which we consider to be on the right wing. He was very much a supporter of Donald Trump, very much somebody that Donald Trump admired, very much somebody who probably helped Donald Trump get elected, and somebody who was very well thought of, not just on the right, but by young people on the right, who really saw him as a beacon of light and somebody who spoke the truth. And if you didn't agree with him, he would continue to argue with you until you did agree with him. And the point is that he was all about democracy, he was all about free speech, and he was actually talking about free speech when the bullet that killed him entered his neck. We're not going to show you that because it's too graphic, and quite frankly, I don't want to give any publicity to the scumbag who shot him dead. Let's hear a voice note from Jay.
Hi, Mike. I'm a Brit who lives in the States, and I just want to say we've all been heavily impacted, especially people like me who work in conservative politics and conservative activism. We just want to say we're not going to let our voice down. We're going to pick up Charlie's legacy. And I just want to say to everyone, if you're on the left or the right, it doesn't matter. Someone was assassinated, and I just want people to think about his 2 kids and his wife.
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. I think a lot of people will just want to think about his family, his life, his contribution to discourse, basically, because what we don't want to see in any way, shape or form is the death of democracy, the death of debate, and the death of conversation. But that's what somebody in America wants to do. They want to shut down anybody they don't agree with. And unfortunately, some of them have guns. And that's now why we are where we are. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's coming up to 6 minutes past 9. This is Morning Glory. This is, of course, Morning Glory with you all the way through until 10 o'clock regarding Morning Mike. After the tragic news from America, says Brian in Worthing, all these events of this kind should have drones up covering the rooftops. They are always on a roof. It surely wouldn't take a lot, just a thought. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about Charlie Kirk was that he was out and about an awful lot. He enjoyed going out and doing events like the one he was doing in Utah yesterday. And there's only certain levels of security that you can really do. If you remember, Donald Trump was shot at by somebody on a roof, and he's the president of the United States of America. He would think would have the highest level of security that could ever be had. Surely this should be a wake-up call, says Karen in Taunton. A turning point. No such thing as hate speech, non-crime hate incidents. You don't have the right to not be offended. Free speech for all, even if you don't agree. They've just made this man a martyr, a beacon for free speech. Well, this is the thing. I watch Charlie Kirk regularly and agree with many of his points. His ability to have a fact-based discussion and even bring people around to a new way of thinking was amazing, says Alan. He knew he was in danger doing what the world needed and continued to do so with impact. He was a Christian man, a good man, and a man that will be terribly missed. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that we're even talking about it in this sense that Charlie Kirk, at the age of 31, assassinated because of some of the things that he thought were right. Let's talk to Ryan Harris, journalist and reporter over in California. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, I take it that there's no updates yet. As far as we know, the shooter, the protagonist, is still at large, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I found it interesting listening to law enforcement experts, the way they described this. Obviously, it seems like the shot came from a couple hundred yards away, came from a rooftop.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a situation where the building might have been key card protected. One of the experts said would have had to have cased the building at least 2 or 3 times beforehand, would have had to have been up there after the tent was set up to see where his shot would go, and then left with the gun and the shell casing that would come out of the gun after the shot was fired. So, it was something calculated, and surely with that in mind, he also had an escape plan plan, and that's why they've been unable to find him so far.
Yeah, indeed. And is there any theory about who he might have been? Or, I mean, I guess somebody like Charlie Kirk would have a lot of enemies out there.
Really, any theory would be nothing more than speculation, Mike. And as you said, this is a guy who championed free speech, started as a teenager, put up a card table at the University of Madison with a cardboard sign that simply read, "Debate me."
Right.
And, because he was on the right and because there's a lot of animosity between both sides right now, certainly that attracted a lot of attention from the left. Now, both sides are equally as guilty when it comes to political violence. We've seen that over the decades. I mean, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, and his brother Bobby all killed, all of them, on the left, and for different reasons. One side or the other is just not immune to it, and until they find this guy, it'll be hard to determine what a motive is.
Yeah, absolutely right. I suppose there won't be, as usual, because there never is, much of an argument about gun ownership and the numbers of guns that are in America. They always have those conversations whenever there's a school shooting. But, there are an awful lot of gun incidents in America. This is just another one. But it seems to be worse because of the sort of circumstances, in some ways you can dismiss a school shooter as being somebody who's clearly unhinged and has got some kind of, axe to grind. But this appears to be, a relatively, innocent young man with a young family who's been killed because of what he says.
Absolutely. And to your point there, I mean, this is a guy who simply wanted people to talk. He just wanted people to debate. Now, he was a supporter of Donald Trump, and there are a lot of people who strongly, I will say, dislike Donald Trump in this country. There are an equal number of people who strongly like Donald Trump and agree with him and support him. So, we're really almost split right down the middle. The election numbers are one thing, but, if you look at the popular vote, it was extremely close. And, just a little bit of swing was all it took in key places to get Donald Trump back in the White House. But here you have Charlie Kirk, just wanted to foster dialogue, father of two. His youngest is just 7 months old, leaves a wife also behind. And, one of the things I was watching as I was preparing to talk to you, Mike, I went back to California Governor Gavin Newsom's first installment of his podcast, and his guest was Charlie Kirk.
Right.
Now, here's a guy, and one can say certainly that, to say Gavin Newsom is pretty liberal might be a little bit of an understatement. I mean, you're talking about the governor of California as well.
Right.
They do call this the left coast. But at one point, Charlie Kirk got Gavin Newsom to acknowledge that he thinks it's unfair that trans female athletes, competing against biological females is unfair.
Yeah.
That was an unprecedented comment from a guy who, 20 years ago was among the first to be performing same-sex marriages on the steps of San Francisco City Hall.
Yeah.
So, he's, again, like you said, he was a champion of free speech, and that's been lost.
I mean, that is the trouble, isn't it? That, when somebody like Gavin Newsom says something which is fairly obvious, people go, my goodness me, what an amazingly brave thing to say. Crazy. Ryan, listen, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Harris, there, journalist and reporter in California. Let's have a listen to what Charlie Kirk says about himself on what he does best.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
And that's the trouble with what we have here in political discourse, isn't it? That, you know, one side is good and one side is evil. Nick